Hey tubers, and welcome back. Today's project is this door panel on the Chevy 2000 Blazer. As you can see, I have quite a mess here. This panel snapped. I'm trying to clear this in. The holes for the bolts that hold this are broken out. What I'm going to attempt to do today is to get this panel off, take it inside, glue it, maybe reinforce the back of it, and get it back on. It's snowing outside. It's the only day I have to work on this, so here we go. First of all, I'm going to take the panel off that has all the controls on it. Just push in and pull it out. Now we have these wires that disconnect. It's hard to video this in the snow. I'm trying to keep the camera dry. And let's see. Alright guys, I'm back, and I had this door panel inside the house for a couple hours now. It was freezing outside. I know the glue wouldn't stick out there. And you can see how this is cracked all the way across. There's nothing holding these pieces together. I'm not sure if this is going to be salvageable, but we're going to give it a shot. And the problem all started from in here. This is where the screws that go through this panel that mount it to the door should go. And you can see that plastic was just broken right out. Okay, this is the back side of it now. What I'm going to do is glue this. I'm going to beat the glue all the way across, let it dry, and then I have a piece of scrap metal. Here's where the two mounting screws will come through. There's nothing to hold it. I'm going to cut this scrap metal. I'm not sure if it's thick enough. It's the only thing I have laying around right now. The rest of the scrap I have is out back, and I'm not going through that snow to get to it. But I'll cut this down, drill a couple of holes, and when the screws pull, the pressure will be against this solid piece over here. Hopefully that'll hold it. If that doesn't work, I'll be taking it apart again and maybe mounting some L brackets on each side, and that gives way. Just going to have to go to the scrapyard, get another inside panel. And you can see where these plugs were being bent because these screws weren't here. This was the only thing holding the door on. So I'm going to get to gluing this together, cutting this metal down, drilling a couple of holes for the bolts to come through. Well guys, I don't have that panel back together yet. The glue's still drying on it, but this is what I'm looking at here. These are the main bolts that hold that panel to the door. The plastic that this was mounted to broke through. I'm still not sure on how I'm going to replace that plastic, but I'm going to get these bolts out. What I might do is just put some big washers on this side of the panel, and I might have to get longer bolts to go through. I have to see if I have any leverage on here. This, I'm still not sure on how to get out, and quite frankly, if I could wiggle it through without having to take this off, that's what I'm going to do. There's a couple of tabs over here, and as I mentioned, it's freezing out today, and I really don't want to snap any of these tabs, or worse than that, any of these brackets off. This one and this other one popped right out. It was very easy. These other ones here, being stiff, the cold, or what it may be, or maybe somebody glued them back in once before. This was definitely worked on once before. What was done, I'm not sure. Could have been something with the window, something with the wiring, I don't know. But either way, going to try to get this panel back on, and if I can't go back on, I'm just going to have to go to the junkyard, pick up another one. By the way, these bolts are 9/32, and if you can see, here's the plastic that should be holding that panel to the door. Broke right off. This one has a little piece of it. The rest of it fell out when I pulled that panel off. Now this is the armrest that I took off, and you can see here is where that plastic broke out on this piece and this piece here. Now I cut a piece of that metal to fit in. I'm going to try gluing it in, see if it holds, and I'll drill a hole in here slightly bigger than the hole for the screw of the bolt, so it gives me a little wiggle room, because it's going to be hard to line it up. Okay, this is the piece that I fabricated. Now I have to cut one more to fit in here. Let me get an angle on this. Right there. This gap has to be filled. So what I'm using to fabricate those pieces is this piece of scrap. Not sure what this came off of, back of a stove, dryer, not quite sure. It's not that thick, but once it's folded it should give enough support. My main concern is whether the glue is going to hold it in. I could put a couple of screws through with a bolt, but with that plastic I'm not sure if that would do more damage. Okay, now I have this all glued back together. Where this tape is where this was split. I just have this tape on as a visual. All down in here was split. This was split all the way up to here. When I put it together what was super glue, I had to do a section at a time to hold it in place. Then I just laid a couple of books on it, propped it up from the bottom. As one section dried, I went over to the next section. Now what I also did was to take the armrest off from the other, that's on the other side, because this is where the main problem is. Right over here the plastic was blown out. Right here there isn't any plastic left for the bolt to go through to hold on to bolt this panel onto the door. So I used that scrap metal and I made these little brackets in here that I super glued in, one here and the bigger one over here. This was completely gone. What I did, I super glued it, and I have a sheet metal screw going through this end. Now the big problem with this is this hole that I drilled, if it's lined up properly. On the other side I just used the channel that was there where a screwdriver would go, and I made the hole a little bigger than the bolt that'll go through it, so I have a little wiggle room. Now the bolt will be going from the other side, but I'm just showing the difference in the size. Just pressure on the bolt, keep it from going through. If that hole isn't lined up right, I'll just enlarge it, and if I have to, I'll use a bigger washer on this bolt. Now to get this armrest off, this was the easiest part. There are screws that go through this side. And I bought this packet over here for $1.19. Has an assortment of these nylon body panel clips. It has the three that I need. Hi tubers, and welcome back. Today is Sunday. As you would have it, it's snowing again. I have this panel all glued back together, and I installed the new tabs on the bottom. Now the biggest concern is whether these holes on the metal that I bent to fit in there in the right location to accept the screws. If this is in the right spot, the rest should be a breeze. Alright, so we have the lip where this is going to go on. The panel fits in here. This goes through the openings. I'm not going to show the installation. I don't have a way to mount this camera. But here's the two. There's one and two holes where those bolts go through to hold the door on. The plastic on the panel was broken and it wasn't holding the door. The only thing that was holding is where the clips go, and eventually they gave out. There we go, here's a good shot. Here's the hole, here's the piece I fabricated, the hole I drilled through, and the hole that it has to go into. Doesn't even come close. And the only way I had to measure was this indentation, if you can see here in the plastic, of where a screwdriver would go in to get to that bolt. Now on this side, we fared a little better. The piece that was fabricated lines up with the hole. So one side worked out well. The other side, I'm going to have to cut this out. Cut this out over here so the bolt could go through. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to use to bolt this back on. Anyway, this panel has to come off again. I have to unconnect these wires over here, and we'll work on that plate inside the garage. Okay, and here we have the finished product. The panel's back on. Doesn't give any. In that bottom corner and across the bottom, it has the new nylon plugs on the inside. I was able to use the plugs that were in here to begin with. Everything's back in place, and we'll see how this holds. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful or entertaining, subscribe, give a thumbs up, pass it along. Stay warm, stay safe. Until next time.